Many of those from the extreme left who have been criticizing photo ID are using scare tactics. They're more interested in divisive politics than ensuring that no one's vote is disenfranchised by a fraudulent ballot.
This bill is not about voter ID. It is 57 pages of regressive, unconstitutional acts to rig and manipulate elections through voter suppression.
And moments after it was signed, the legal challenges began. Let's talk about it now with our panel. All right, we've got this new law in North Carolina. It's not just about voter ID, but it cuts down early voting, same-day registration, all kinds of things. Juan, do you think it will withstand legal muster?
No. You know, there are lots of, when I look at the polls, most Americans support voter ID. Mm-hmm. Most Americans are pretty clear in their thinking that if you have to, as Governor McCrory said, you know, show some ID to get in the airport or to get...
Buy cold medicine.
Anything, yeah, that you should be required to. Now, the difference in my mind is, of course, that voting is a constitutional right and that you shouldn't have any impediment to pursue your constitutional rights. But again, this is something way beyond that, as we just heard from that civil rights advocate, Reverend Barber, I believe, in which he said, you're limiting, I think you're going from 17 days of voting down to 10. If you change your address now, you have to make the change in terms of your ID within 25 days. The hours of voting are constrained. I mean, this really is an effort to suppress the vote. I don't know how you get away from that, and I don't know how any judge, to answer your question, Shannon, wouldn't see it as such.
I think I maybe saw an eye roll from Jason.
No. Polite disagreement is what you saw. That was the expression I was going for. But the problem here is that there's no evidence that laws of this sort actually suppress the black vote. Black voter participation has been going up. It's been trending up, a trend that began before Obama. In last year's presidential election, black voter turnout exceeded white voter turnout, even as these laws have been passed in various states. There's simply no evidence that these laws suppress black voter turnout. States like Indiana, Georgia, Tennessee have some of the strictest voter ID laws in the country. In those states last year, black voter turnout exceeded white voter turnout. If Republicans are trying to suppress the black vote, they are doing a spectacularly bad job of it.
Well, you mentioned Indiana. Of course, that state's voter ID law was challenged all the way to the Supreme Court 5 years ago. Justice John Paul Stevens, not of the right-wing persuasion, said basically, you know, if you have to show up at a DMV office, turn in some documents, and pose for a picture, that is not too much to ask from somebody who wants to vote.
That's why I think the claim that it's unconstitutional is simply not going to hold up.
At least on that point, when we're talking voter ID.
Which is the major point. That's usually the sticking point in all of these cases, and it's also the political point. But there's one aspect of the political argument that I think is missed. The left gets the prestige of this by saying that its position is to prevent people from losing the right to vote, from being disenfranchised. But if you go to the polls, you vote for A, and by a fraud, say an illegal immigrant or somebody who voted already votes for candidate B, your vote for A has been canceled. So in effect, you also have been deprived of your vote. So I think it ought to be seen in those terms. You know, there are ways of depriving another person of the vote. A is to stop them. Second is to cancel the vote by allowing illegal and fraudulent voting. So I think there's an equal moral standing on the two sides.
Let me just suggest there is no evidence of any such thing going on. There's no evidence, and in fact, Governor McCrory went so far as to say undetected fraud because he has no evidence of any fraud.
I will say to that point, Greg Abbott, the Attorney General who's now running for governor down in Texas, says that they have prosecuted many of these cases. In Florida, we've seen the same thing. I don't know about North Carolina, but it does happen.
It happens. Oh, no, everything happens. People fall off buildings. People, you know, fall off bridges. But I'm saying as a matter of influencing or changing an election outcome, when was the last time we heard about that?
You think that somebody casting a ballot fraudulently is as infrequent as somebody falling off a bridge?
Correct.
I think you have fallen off a bridge.
Oh, no.
You're believing that.
No one's falling off a bridge.
Our elections aren't clean, and every attempt to
believe me, we have fly-speck surveillance of our elections in this country, and if there was any evidence that any Democrat was pursuing cheating in this manner, boy, would Republicans be ballistic, Charles.
If you believe that our elections are clean, you believe that the baseball is clean. I'm not sure either is true.
Where's Bud Selig? Paging Bud.